While today's Romans are used to walking past Caesar's tomb or Nero's favorite stomping grounds up above, few know none of this would be here today if not for the engineering marvel buried beneath their feet. Up next,
Run in.
a Jewish and pagan empire of the dead.
My God, look at that. I mean, you can see all the bones right here.
And later,
This place just keeps snaking around, doesn't it? I mean, it's like we're in an underworld city.
signs of ancient life in a subterranean neighborhood.
These are the actual emperors that were found here in this space?
In ancient Rome, it was a sign of leadership to be born with a crooked nose.
By the 1st century AD, Rome already had a complex sewage system. Over 250 miles of aqueducts, even apartment buildings. Life inside these city walls was bustling. But just beyond the walls was a city of the dead. Ancient Rome was surrounded by 6 miles of nearly impenetrable city walls that stood more than 30 feet high. But it was another, invisible wall that separated the living from the dead. It was called the Pomerium, and it was the religious boundary of the city. Roman law stated that the dead could not be buried inside the sacred area. But with over 1 million people living in a city that suffered plagues, fires, and civil wars, death was an everyday part of life. Burying a lot of people in a short amount of time was a real problem. In the early days of the city, most Romans were pagan and simply cremated their dead. For the more wealthy residents, they built elaborate mausoleums to house the remains. But as the empire expanded, there was a growing community of Jewish and Christian citizens who didn't believe in cremation. Their solution? Catacombs. Large, subterranean superstructures that snake for several miles underground. Over 500,000 people were buried in them, creating an enormous necropolis just outside the ancient city walls. Many of the mysteries about everyday Roman life have been uncovered by exploring the underground labyrinths, and I was heading down to find them. I met Greg DePippo, an expert on religions in ancient Rome, along the Via Appia.
Derek, Greg, thanks for meeting with me. How you doing?
Catacombs can be found below many of the streets, parks, and even private homes just outside the city walls. There are 77 known catacombs buried just outside ancient Rome, but 6 of them are unlike any other. They were left behind, not by the Christians, but by Roman Jews. Rome is the oldest diaspora community in Western Europe, but after an earthquake in the 11th century, 1,000 years of Jewish presence there was diminished. But some of that still remains underground.
Come on in.
And I had special access to go beneath the yard of a private home to see it.
Watch your head.
All right.
You're definitely going to need one of these. And you're going to want to watch your step.
So Greg, am I in the 2nd century right now? Is this ancient Rome?
This is ancient Rome. This is ancient Rome.
This looks like natural roof in here.
Yes, this is a cave. Italy is mostly volcanic material called tufa.
Rome sits on layers of this compressed volcanic material, or tufa. Tufa is soft and easy to dig, making the city of the dead fairly easy to carve out by hand.
And as tufa is exposed to air, it becomes harder. So it does become strong enough that you can just sort of leave the gallery without a worry about a collapse.
I see, so that's why this doesn't come down.
Right.
They had to dig fast to accommodate the bodies, so the layout is haphazard. The catacomb was only discovered in 1859 and hasn't been entirely excavated. But what has been cleared out is almost 2 miles long and holds nearly 7,000 bodies. Now this is incredible.
These are the original burial sites. This is what is called a loculus, which means a little place in Latin. They're carved into the walls, and the stones here, you see, this is in Greek.
Inscriptions on the stones tell us who's found in each burial site. But why isn't it in Hebrew? Many believe that the Jews buried here migrated to Rome from Jewish colonies in Egypt, Greece, and modern-day Turkey, and not directly from the Holy Land. So they would have spoken Greek, the language of the common people. But there were other clues down here.
It is not so well carved, and so this indicates that these people were poor. Catacombs are a way of creating lots of burial space quickly and cheaply.
With a high infant mortality rate and an average life expectancy of under 25 years, there was plenty of business for the undertakers in ancient Rome.
Here, all you need really is a pick and a wheelbarrow, and you've created your burial space. So when they were getting ready to bury someone in a catacomb, a digger would come in, create a loculus. They would put the body in, wrap it up in a shroud. Very often they would put lime on top of it to hasten decomposition. And then they would seal the loculus with the bricks. And the Jews would put their inscriptions next to the body.
As more people died, they simply dug farther and farther underground. This nearly 2-mile-long catacomb was only used for 200 years, from the 2nd to the 4th centuries. Archaeologists know this by the clues left behind, marks in the hand-carved walls. And they know for sure this was a Jewish site, not a Christian one, by the menorah left behind. This is clearly what tells you that this is a Jewish catacomb.
Yes, absolutely. And for the Jews in the ancient world, this was their symbol of themselves, the seven-branch menorah. Wherever you go and you find a clear archaeological evidence of a Jewish presence, the menorah is what you see. The Star of David is not the thing. And here you have an arcosolium.
An arcosolium is something the Jews and the Christians had in common. It's a Latin word for the arched burial spaces we saw throughout the catacombs. The Greeks used the term sarcophagus, meaning flesh-eater, a word both Jews and Christians may have taken offense to.
The Jews and Christians do not want to give the impression that the body is being definitively consumed by the earth. So when they put people in these things, they call them solium, which is the name of the shape, underneath an arch. So it is an arcosolium.
Throughout the catacomb, there are several burial spaces like this one, but not all were for the poorest of Jewish Romans.
This is the one part of the catacomb where you have clear indication of burial for wealthy people, because you've got a lot of very elaborate painting. It's a fountain. You see the water springing out of it. Water is a very important thing, especially for people who come from a desert originally, and so water is always a sign of paradise. And likewise, these palm trees, these are actually date palms.
Oh, sure. Look at this. You can make it out.
Yes. You have children's graves also stuck in here,
Right.
ruining the really nice plaster decoration. What you may be looking at is the result of a plague, where a bunch of members of the same family die from plague. They need to create a space very quickly to get rid of the body, so to speak.
There I was, 15 feet beneath a private home,
Just seems to snake around in different directions.
where ancient Jewish Romans would have gathered to bury and pay respects to their dead family members. But what was most eerie was that it was like they had never left. That's because for 1,500 years, these rooms were sealed up tightly. That meant the artwork and human bones remained intact.
Those are human bones.
In
These have
centuries.
survived maybe 18 centuries, probably because the grave was originally sealed up very, very tight, and so there was less air and moisture getting in to cause decay.
Several areas revealed eerie bunches of small loculi, or burial spaces.
About half of the people who were born did not live to see 5 years old. So you also are going to have a lot of infant graves. So because I have plague, or just because of a really hot summer, and lots of infants would die.
Oh my God, look at that. I mean, you can see all the bones right there. I wouldn't even know what those curved, I mean, they could be small ribs from a child. I really wouldn't know how to explain
It's a
that.
child's grave.
It's like some Indiana Jones moment here.
I was walking in one of the few time capsules of Jewish Rome still left intact. It was littered with clues about their lives, but there was much more to see down here.
It seems to snake around in different directions.
As we walked to the deepest part of the catacomb, we ran into another burial space. And this one was carved out by a different group altogether.
Ah, this is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I mean, this, my God, look at this.
The artwork was different here. Mythological paintings in vivid colors. We had run into a pagan burial space. Greg says that at some point during the construction of the catacomb, the builders had actually broken through to an even older pagan burial plot. They connected the two separate catacombs, expanding the ever-growing underground city of the dead.